Welcome back to OT Sports. Today we got our SEC Conference Tournament Prediction video. If you guys are liking these videos, make sure you go down there, leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you're new. We have, if you include this one, 29 Conference Tournament Prediction videos already out. We're doing the final 3 tomorrow. Not only do we have college basketball, we do college football, NFL, NBA, and MLB. So if you're interested in any of that, go down there, hit the subscribe button, turn on the noties to make sure you don't miss when we upload a video. This is the best place to be for March Madness content. Discord X linked in the description. Join that, follow that, whatever you'd like to do. Thank you guys for the support on these videos. We are 1 subscriber away from 100. Thank you guys so much for that. So if you could, go down there, subscribe to the channel. But with all that being said, let's get right into this bracket prediction video. So Arkansas is the 12 seed. They have had a pretty disappointing season. They have... I think I had them finishing second or third in the SEC, in my SEC preview video, preseason, in the preseason. They, very disappointing year. Now, they still have a very talented team, but I don't know. It's a pretty disappointing year for the Razorbacks, 15-16, not top 100 in either offense or defense. They have a pretty fast-paced team, but, they've been struggling. They do get a pretty easy matchup here, though, against Vanderbilt. They're the worst KenPom team in this conference. I'll go ahead and take Arkansas. They're, like I said, very talented roster, very young team, so they will be back in a year or two. I'm not expecting a season this disappointing for them next year or the year after that. And I think they should be able to take care of Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt 9-22, pretty bad season, but the team that's actually worse than them, Missouri is actually better than Vanderbilt and KenPom, but I don't think they've won an SEC game. They're 8-23 on the year. Vanderbilt 9-22. Like I said, Missouri is actually a little bit better than them. They're top 130 in offense and top 190 in defense. But Georgia was one of those teams that was on the bubble for a little bit. They have kind of faded out of that conversation. They haven't been in the bubble recently. That was more January, February, early in SEC play. They were on the bubble, but like I've said, they've really faded out, played themselves out, and now at this point they'll probably need to win the conference. Well, they will need to win the conference tournament to get in. There's no world where if they, even make the SEC championship and lose, they're not going to get in. Unfortunately, that's just how it is. But Georgia, not a bad team. 104 in offense, 78 in defense. I'll go ahead and take them over Missouri. 8-seeded LSU taking on 9-seeded Mississippi State. I was actually surprised LSU was ahead of teams like Mississippi State, Ole Miss, and Georgia. I thought they were around 11th. I thought, the teams I just listed were. I honestly still do think they're all better than LSU. So I will go ahead and take Mississippi State, but. LSU, not a bad team, very well-rounded, 94th in offense, 93rd in defense. But Mississippi State is one of those teams that is very high in KenPom, actually ranked 39th, 19-12 on the year. They have a top 25 defense and just outside the top 50 offense. Very good numbers there. They are one of those teams, though, on the bubble. They're going to need this win and potentially a win over Tennessee. I don't know if this would be enough to get them in, but only time will tell. I think they do beat LSU here. 5-seeded South Carolina taking on 12-seeded Arkansas. South Carolina is one of those stories this season. They have had an amazing year, finishing. I want to make sure I get this right. Just give me a second here. Gotta find. They finished 25-6. Very solid season. Top 50 in both offense and defense. Very well-rounded team. They go up against a very talented Arkansas team. Real quick, just wanted to say congrats to South Carolina. I had them finishing last in the SEC preseason preview video. They're all the way up at 5th, and there was a point. I mean, the 2, 3, 4, and 5 seed, I'm pretty sure all tied for second place in this conference. So they're all pretty even according to that. Now, obviously, there's teams I think are better than others, but South Carolina, very good team. Very impressive. I do think they beat Arkansas here. Arkansas has had a disappointing season. They're a young team. They will be back, but I don't think it's this year. South Carolina is a tournament team. I think they will be able to get in. and potentially, make some noise. They're definitely getting in no matter what. They're a lock for the tournament. Even if they lose this game, they'd still get in. But I do think they win. 7 seed Texas A&M, 10 seed Ole Miss. Now this is one of those bubble games. Both these teams probably on the wrong side of the bubble right now. They need to do some work. So whoever loses this is essentially eliminated from NCAA tournament contention. I don't think the loser has a world where they get in. Now, Ole Miss is one of those teams that they were actually one of the longest teams that were undefeated, but once conference play started up, they finished 20-11. Their defense is just not great, barely inside the top 150, and their offense is solid, but it's not good enough to carry them like, certain other teams in this conference. We'll get to them shortly. Ole Miss is one of those teams I was never really high on. Texas A&M, disappointing season similar to Arkansas, but they can still get into the tournament. They're 18-13. They got some solid wins. They're top 50 in both offense and defense. I think they'll be able to beat Ole Miss and potentially give Kentucky some problems there in that quarterfinal matchup. 6-seeded Florida having a very solid season. I was not expecting the Gators to do as good as they have done this season. They're taking on Georgia. I feel like this is one where Florida could get upset. Georgia's kind of a sneaky team. I feel like they're a little bit underrated. I will go ahead and say Florida wins this one, but something about that game, I don't know. Florida's 21-10. They will make the tournament no matter what. They're one of the faster-paced teams in all of college basketball. They got just outside the top 15 in offense and then 85th in defense. Pretty heavily offensive team, but there's some other teams even more extreme than that. And like I said, we will get to those teams here shortly. Tennessee is the 1 seed. They're 5th overall in KenPom in the country, 25th in offense, 3rd in defense. Elite defense. Dalton Knecht is probably the second best player in all of college basketball. They're got a veteran team too. Blanking on the names. Zakai Ziegler is one of their guys. He's been around for a long time, and he's been a crucial part of their success this season. For some reason, I'm blanking on Tennessee players' names. I don't know why, but this team is very solid. They've had an amazing season. If they win the SEC and UNC potentially goes out a little bit early in the ACC, I feel like they have what it takes to be the 4th number 1 seed in March Madness. But they would have to win the SEC for that to happen. I do think they beat Mississippi State. Mississippi State, good defense and all, but their offense just isn't impressive to me. Outside of the top 50, that's pretty solid, but going up against Tennessee, you got to be a little bit better than that. Dalton Knecht is one of those guys that can go out there and win a game by himself. He's ridiculous. I'm going to go ahead and take the Volunteers. 4-seeded Auburn, taking on 5-seed South Carolina. Now, I went back and forth on this. Just based on Auburn's one of those inconsistent teams where if they're playing their best, they can beat anyone, but there's something about them. I just can't really trust them. I don't know what it is. Auburn, they're coached very well. Bruce Pearl is an amazing coach. Johnny Broome, an amazing player for them. One of the best players in the SEC. But South Carolina has had a very sneaky year. I feel like they could do it. The reason, though, I am going to end up taking Auburn is just because of the overall efficiency difference. 44th in offense, 48th in defense for South Carolina compared to Auburn. 13th in offense, 6th in defense. That is ridiculous. Now, Auburn, they didn't have the best non-conference schedule, but they like to play fast. South Carolina really doesn't. I feel like Auburn's offense just overpowers them here, and also Auburn's defense, just outside the top 5 in the country. Auburn's actually 4th in KenPom in the entire country, which is crazy. So I'll go ahead and take Auburn. They're actually ahead of Tennessee, which is, really crazy. 24-7. They've had an amazing year. I'll go ahead and take Auburn over South Carolina. 2-seeded Kentucky taking on 7-seeded A&M. Now, if there's any game for Kentucky to lose, I feel like it's this one. A&M is one of those teams very well-rounded, and honestly, I feel like this might be Kentucky's worst matchup of out of any of these teams that they could play in this SEC tournament, just because of how well-rounded A&M is. South Carolina could be, but I just don't think South Carolina has the talent to do so. Kentucky is one of those teams hyper-focused on offense, 6th in the country in offense, just barely top 100 in defense, but they're one of the fastest teams. Reed Shepherd's been on a tear recently. Rob Dillingham is amazing. I'm going to go ahead and say Kentucky takes care of business and wins, but I wouldn't be shocked if A&M went out there and won this one. 3-seeded Alabama, another one of those teams, hyper-focused offensively, second best offense in the country, only behind Purdue, and just narrowly. And they were ranked 101 in offense, very similar to Kentucky, a little bit less extreme, or a little bit more extreme. They're 21-10 though. They've kind of been on a little bit of a I don't want to say cold streak, but they've been struggling to beat some of these good teams recently. I think Florida goes in there and gets them. They have some momentum from winning the previous day. Alabama at that point will have not played for almost an entire week. I'll go ahead and say the Gators get them and catch them sleepwalking. And Alabama goes into the tournament on a little bit of a cold streak. I don't know how far Alabama can realistically get just because how bad their defense is. I mean, the offense is phenomenal, but the defense definitely lags behind. 1-seeded Tennessee taking on 4-seeded Auburn here in the semifinals matchup. Now, Tennessee and Auburn, I already said, one spot between each other in KenPom. Auburn is actually ranked 4th in the country compared to Tennessee's 5th. Auburn actually 12 spots higher in offensive efficiency. Tennessee 3 spots higher in defense. So if you're going just off of KenPom, which I have somewhat done for some of the smaller conferences, you would say Auburn should win this one. Auburn has a guy who can go out there and win you a game too in Johnny Broome. I feel like Tennessee just beat Auburn the week before that. So maybe Auburn comes into this game extra prepared, but something about Tennessee this year, I just really like them. Dalton Knecht is an amazing player. I'll go with Tennessee. If this wasn't like a smaller conference, I probably would go ahead and take Auburn here for the upset. But I've actually watched these teams play quite a bit. Tennessee, I think, is just the more complete, well-rounded, better team. And their defense, and their offense. It does worry me a little bit. The offense does kind of just run through Dalton Knecht. So if he has an off night, they could be in trouble. But I don't know. He hasn't had an off night very often. That's kind of why they're so good. 2-seeded Kentucky taking on 6-seeded Florida. I think this is where Florida's run comes to an end. I think Kentucky gets it done. Florida, phenomenal season, 30th overall in KenPom, 17th in offense, 85th in defense. Kentucky's offense, 11 spots higher at 6th, but the defense at 94th, 9 spots lower in defense. Both these teams like to play fast, which is why I think the defense ultimately won't really matter too much in this one. I think this will be an offensive shootout. I trust Kentucky's players more to score the ball at higher rates. Kentucky likes to get into the high-scoring games, and if you play to their advantage, that's why Kentucky's beaten Alabama. That's why Kentucky has recently beaten Tennessee. Kentucky's been playing really good recently, and as much as I've hated on them, as much as I've not been a huge Kentucky guy this whole season, I can't just ignore that. They've been on a pretty good little streak here. So I'll go ahead and take Kentucky. And Kentucky just did beat Tennessee. I'm going to go out on a limb and say they come in here and do it again. I don't know. If Dalton Knecht, he's really their only guy on offense. That's why they're ranked 25th in offensive efficiency. Kentucky is much higher than that. Now, we just saw Kentucky go into Tennessee and beat them. This one will be at a neutral site. Like I said, Kentucky's been very good recently. I think they go out and they beat Tennessee again in the SEC tournament. I think they could, if they win this tournament, they could end up as a 3-seed maybe in the NCAA tournament. It's kind of crazy. They were as low as like a 6 or 7. They struggled a bit, about a month ago, but they've really picked it up, and they've been winning, taking care of business. Like I said, they've beaten a lot of good teams in the stretch too. They beat Alabama. They just beat Kentucky. Uh, Kentucky's been doing a phenomenal job recently. Now Tennessee is overall more well-rounded, but something about this matchup. I mean, Reed Shepherd has just been amazing for them. They've been putting up, over 80 points in pretty much all their games. Like I said, on this little run here, they've beaten Auburn on the road. Ever since the Gonzaga loss, really, they've really figured it out. They beaten Ole Miss, who's struggling to get into the tournament. They beaten Auburn. They beat Alabama. They beat Mississippi State on the road. And then they just went into Tennessee and beat them. They've beaten some really good teams. They've been on a tear recently. I'll go ahead and say Kentucky goes out and wins the SEC tournament this season. So yeah, that's gonna do it for the SEC Conference Tournament predictions. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure you leave a like on it. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. As always, Discord X linked in the description. Join that, follow that. If you guys have enjoyed these videos, go down there, subscribe to the channel, turn on the noties, and of course like the video, comment down below what your SEC tournament predictions are. I would love to hear them. I'll go ahead and give my response to them. I try to respond to every single comment. So hope you guys enjoyed this one, and I will see you guys tomorrow with the final 3 conference tournament predictions. Hope you guys enjoyed.